I worked tirelessly for years and sold my startup for $47 million. When I offered my parents a $1.6 million home, they mocked me, but now they're begging to meet again, hoping for a second chance. I, 32M, sat at the restaurant table, looking at the menu, my hands slightly shaking as I felt the house deed folded in my jacket pocket. After 3 long years of working hard, doing 18-hour days, facing many rejections and sleepless nights, I had finally sold the mobile app One made in my small studio apartment for $47 million. After taxes, I had enough money to change my family's life completely. My parents came 15 minutes late, as always. Mom walked in with her usual disapproving look, the same look she had since I was a kid whenever I didn't bring perfect grades. Dad followed, already looking at his phone before sitting down. I waited for them to order their usual food, Mom's garden salad with dressing on the side and Dad's club sandwich, before I took a deep breath and told them I had big news that would change our lives. Mom raised her eyebrows and scoffed, saying, "This better not be another one of your silly plans." Her words felt like cold water on me. Dad barely looked up from his phone and said they didn't have time for my little projects. The restaurant suddenly felt too hot. I heard people laughing at the next table, not knowing that my whole world was breaking right there. I reached into my pocket for the house deed, a beautiful 4-bedroom home in the neighborhood they always dreamed of. I had spent 2 weeks looking for houses, imagining Mom's face when she saw the big bedroom with the walk-in closet she loved in magazines, and Dad's happy face when he got the workshop he always wanted. But instead of showing them the deed, I put it back into my coat and said, "Forget it. I was going to buy you a $1.6 million house, but clearly you're not interested in my plans." The silence that followed was loud. Dad's phone fell on the table. Mom's fork stopped halfway to her mouth. I could see them thinking hard, trying to understand. Dad stuttered, asking if I was serious. Mom leaned forward, suddenly very interested, but it was too late. I stood up, put enough money to pay the bill on the table, and left without saying another word. My phone started ringing before I got to my car. Mom's name came first, then Dad's. I didn't answer either call and drove home in silence. Over the next 3 days, they left 17 voicemails. Mom's voice changed from confused to sorry to desperate, saying they didn't mean to ignore me, they were just shocked. Dad was more direct, asking if the house offer was still real. I listened to each message once and deleted them. I remembered how, as a kid, I took apart every electronic toy to see how it worked, while other kids went out. I taught myself to code. My parents thought it was a phase, something I'd give up when I got a real job. When I left college to work on my startup, Dad didn't talk to me for 3 months. Mom introduced me to friends as her son who was still figuring things out. Even when my app became popular and tech blogs wrote about it, they stayed doubtful. Mom asked when I would go back to school. Dad suggested I take a data entry job at his company. Now they wanted to meet again. On the 4th day, I finally answered Mom's call. She sounded relieved, almost crying, apologizing for how they treated me, saying they were proud and wanted to hear everything. She asked if we could meet for dinner. I said yes, but only if I picked the place and time, no phones, no interruptions, and they had to really listen. The dinner was on Friday at 7 at the most expensive restaurant in town. I booked a private room to keep it private. They came early, dressed up, nervous like kids called to the principal's office. I told them about the 3 years of hard work, the nights living on cheap food, the day my app reached #1 in its category, and the call that changed everything. Dad listened quietly, his eyes getting bigger. Mom kept wiping tears and saying sorry. When I finished, they were silent. Mom asked why I never told them before. I reminded her how they always ignored my ideas, told me to get a real job, or changed the subject when relatives asked about my work. Dad asked if the house offer was still available. I saw hope and regret in his eyes. For a moment, I almost changed my mind, but instead, I told them I bought the house for myself. I had moved in the weekend before. There was enough room for my home office and a guest room. The garage was big enough for a classic car project I wanted to try. Their faces looked broken. Mom asked how to fix things between us, how to earn my forgiveness, how to show they were proud. Dad nodded, looking for any chance to make things right. I told them respect can't be bought or forced. Trust takes time. If they wanted a relationship, it had to be equal. No more mocking my choices or treating me like a failure. They promised to do better, to listen, to support me. Their promise was almost sad, because I heard it before. When dessert came, an expensive chocolate cake, I made my last offer. I told them I planned a family vacation to a tropical place with white beaches, crystal water, all expenses paid, first-class flights, and a 5-star hotel. Their eyes lit up. Mom talked about a new swimsuit. Dad talked about using vacation days. They were already dreaming. Then I told them they were not invited. I said I was taking my girlfriend's family, the people who believed in me from the start, who cheered my small wins and supported me in hard times, who never said I was wasting time. The room went silent. Dad's face turned red. Mom looked like I had hurt her, but I was not done. I took out my phone and showed them pictures of the house they could have had. The porch with mountain views, the kitchen with granite counters and fancy appliances, the bedroom with doors to a balcony. I scrolled slowly, letting them see what they lost. Mom's hands trembled as she whispered it was beautiful, just what she always wanted. Dad was speechless. I told them about the old couple who built the house but couldn't keep it. How they cried when I said I wanted to gift it to my parents, and how sad they were when I canceled. The realtor found new buyers within a week, a young family with twins who loved the space. I drove by the house yesterday and saw children's toys on the lawn, and Christmas lights being put up, even though it was only November. Dad finally asked if I might change my mind. He said they were struggling with mortgage payments since his hours got cut. Mom said their house needed repairs they could not afford. I felt sorry for them. They looked small, broken by what their attitude cost them. But sympathy could not undo years of feeling ignored and hurt. I reminded them of my college graduation, when they complained about my major and said I should have studied business for a real job. I told them about my 25th birthday, when I showed them the first good review for my app. Instead of celebrating, Dad warned me most startups fail, and Mom asked when I would get a backup job. Every memory took away their defenses because they remembered too. The difference was they never thought about how their words hurt me. They thought they were being practical, but they were killing my confidence. When the check came, I paid without thinking twice. It was almost a week's salary for them, but to me it was nothing. As we left, Mom asked if we could start over, saying they had changed, and seeing my success open their eyes. The November air was cold, and I saw our breath in the air. Dad's shoulders were bent from cold or regret. I told them starting over was not possible. Too much was said, too many chances missed. But I would try to move forward if they proved they learned. I set rules. No more unwanted advice, no more treating my girlfriend like a phase, no more introducing me like I was a kid who worked with computers. They agreed quickly, but I saw doubt in their eyes. Changing years of habits would be harder than saying sorry. As we got to our cars, Dad asked about the house again, wondering if there were other options. I heard hope in his voice, and for the first time that night, I felt real pity. I said I would think about it. 6 months later, they had changed. They asked about my work with interest. They invited my girlfriend to family dinners and listened to her talk about her masters. Mom even shared an article about my company on Facebook, something I never thought I'd see. Last month, I bought them a house. Not a mansion, but a nice 3-bedroom home in a good area. The mortgage is in my name, and they pay me rent that covers the payments, less than they paid before. It works for everyone. They have a beautiful home without money problems, and I help them while keeping boundaries. Most of all, they know my help is not because they are my parents, but because they earned it. Dad has a workshop now, a garage he turned into a place to make birdhouses and small furniture. He sells them at craft fairs and is happier than I've seen him. Mom turned a spare room into a home office where she does bookkeeping for local businesses. She's always been good with numbers, but now she talks about work with excitement. Sometimes I wonder if buying them the big house would have changed anything or if they'd taken it for granted. Maybe rebuilding our relationship was what we needed. My girlfriend says I was too harsh that night at the restaurant, that I enjoyed their discomfort more than I admit. she's probably right. But I don't feel bad. For years, they made me feel small, like I wasn't worthy of their pride. They had the chance to celebrate me but chose to dismiss me one last time. The result was their own choice. Now when we have family dinners, the talk feels natural. They ask about my next project and listen. They met my business partners and asked smart questions about our plans. Last week, Mom texted me an article about new tech, asking for my opinion. These small things mean more than big apologies. They show real change and effort to see who I am now. The vacation I said I would take, I did. It was with my girlfriend's family in the Maldives, in an overwater bungalow that costs more per night than most make in a month. Her parents were grateful and amazed, but most of all, they were happy to share the moment with me. They were part of my success story from the start, cheering every step, helping in hard times. When I got the offer to sell, her dad was the first person I called. He cried with me, and his pride felt real, more than my parents ever gave. My parents know about the trip now, not because I told them, but because our moms are friends on social media. Mom called me after seeing the photos. I heard hurt in her voice asking why I didn't tell them. I said I did tell them exactly what I would do, and I kept my promise. If they were upset, it was their own fault. The talk was hard, but not a fight like it might have been months ago. Mom said she understood why I did it. She hoped one day I'd include them in more things, but she knew trust had to be earned. That surprised me and gave me hope. Dad is working on a special project now, a desk for my office. He asked for measurements and has worked on it for weeks. It's not something money can buy, but it means more. It shows he cares. When it's done, I might cry. Not because it's expensive or beautiful, but because it shows the relationship we should have had. A father proud of his son, wanting to help in a real way. Sometimes late at night, I think about that lunch. I wonder what would have happened if they had celebrated instead of dismissed me. Would we be closer? Would their support have felt real? I don't know, and I'm learning to be okay with that. The relationship we have now is different, but real. My parents see me as an adult who makes good choices. I see them as people who can grow and change. It's not a perfect ending, but it's ours. The house deed still sits in my desk drawer with my important papers. Sometimes I look at it, remembering when everything changed. It reminds me that respect must be earned, that love without respect is not enough, and sometimes the most loving thing is to set boundaries. My success gave me many things: freedom, respect, and the power to demand what I deserve.